The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the dense foliage of Blackwood Forest. I stood at the edge of the tree line, the air thick with an unspoken tension that seemed to seep from the very roots of the ancient trees. A shiver ran down my spine as I stared into the inky darkness ahead, questioning the sanity of my decision to spend a night alone in this forsaken wilderness. The forest had an aura, a presence that wrapped around you like a suffocating embrace. The rustle of leaves overhead whispered untold secrets, and the distant hoots of nocturnal creatures echoed through the gloom. I set up my tent in a small clearing, the feeble light of my lantern struggling to pierce the oppressive blackness that enveloped me. As I kindled a small fire, its crackling flames offered a semblance of comfort. The warmth danced on my face, but the shadows danced with a malevolence of their own. The forest seemed to come alive, its ancient inhabitants watching, waiting. Night fell swiftly, and with it, an unsettling silence descended upon Blackwood. The crackling of the fire was the only sound, a lonely symphony in the heart of an alien world. I zipped myself into the tent, cocooned in a thin layer of nylon that felt more like a fragile barrier against the unknown than a secure shelter. Sleep eluded me as the forest settled into an eerie quiet. Hours passed, and just as I felt my eyelids grow heavy, a distant whisper slithered through the night air. A name, my name, uttered in a voice so faint, I questioned if I had heard it at all. My heart quickened, and I strained my ears against the silence, but the forest held its breath. Ignoring the chill that crept along my spine, I convinced myself it was a figment of my imagination. Perhaps the isolation was playing tricks on my mind. I closed my eyes, determined to dismiss the unsettling feeling that clung to me like a persistent shadow. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the tent, carrying with it a pungent scent of decay. My eyes snapped open, and I found myself bathed in an otherworldly glow. The walls of the tent pulsed with a sickly light, casting distorted shadows that danced in a grotesque pantomime on the fabric. I unzipped the tent and emerged into a nightmare. The clearing was bathed in an unearthly radiance, and the trees around me writhed with spectral energy. The air crackled with an intensity that set my nerves on edge. I stumbled backward, my lantern flickering in the ghostly wind that howled through the forest. In the pale light, I saw them, shadowy figures that moved with a fluid grace among the trees. Their forms were indistinct, like whispers given shape. I felt their eyes on me, unseen gazes that penetrated to the core of my being. A guttural chant resonated through the air, a language ancient and unfathomable. Terror gripped me as I realized the forest was not the silent spectator I had believed it to be. It was a living entity, and I, an intruder in its sacred realm. I stumbled backward, attempting to escape the ethereal dance of the shadowy figures. The chant grew louder, echoing through the trees like a siren's call. I ran blindly through the forest, branches tearing at my clothes, roots threatening to send me sprawling. The chant pursued me, a relentless pursuit that echoed with the hollow laughter of unseen entities. Panic consumed me, and I questioned the sanity of my decision to venture into this forsaken wilderness. As I gasped for breath, the forest shifted around me. The trees contorted into grotesque shapes, their bark pulsating with an unnatural glow. Whispers enveloped me, voices from the past echoing tales of despair and solitude. I clutched my ears, attempting to drown out the haunting cacophony. Suddenly, the chanting ceased, and the forest fell into an oppressive silence. I found myself in a small clearing, the moon casting an eerie glow on the ground. The shadowy figures emerged from the darkness, their indistinct forms now clearer in the pale light. They encircled me, their silent gaze penetrating my very soul. In unison, they raised their arms, their voices joining in a haunting melody that seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of reality. The ground beneath me trembled, and tendrils of darkness spiraled from the forest floor, wrapping around my limbs like serpents. I struggled against their ethereal grip, but the more I resisted, the tighter they constricted. The figures closed in, their faces inches from mine. Their eyes were voids, infinite and consuming. I felt myself being drawn into their abyss, my consciousness unraveling like a thread pulled from the fabric of existence. The forest roared with a deafening intensity, and the world around me dissolved into a surreal nightmare. I awoke with a start, the first light of dawn seeping through the tent fabric. Sweat clung to my skin, and my heart raced with the residue of a nightmarish encounter. The forest, once alive with spectral energy, had returned to a semblance of normalcy. Doubt gnawed at me as I emerged from the tent. Had it all been a dream? The clearing stood quiet and unassuming, devoid of the supernatural spectacle that had unfolded before my eyes. I packed my belongings in a daze, haunted by the residual echoes of the forest's malevolence. As I stepped out of Blackwood Forest, the sun bathed the landscape in a golden glow. Behind me, the trees stood sentinel, their secrets locked away in the depths of their ancient hearts. The memories of that night lingered, a chilling reminder that some realms are best left undisturbed, and that the forest, with its silent whispers and spectral dances, held a power beyond the understanding of mortal minds.